My sister allowed her high school Oppress to stay at my place without asking me, claiming it was just for closure. When she called me fatty at dinner and left, I played the video of her husband hitting on me at the bar last week. I'm Rowan, 42, single, divorced, and doing pretty well for myself in Eugene, Oregon. I've lived alone since my divorce 5 years ago, and to be honest, I love it. My home is my peace. It's the one place in the world where I don't have to entertain or explain myself. It's filled with second-hand art I've collected, thrifted furniture I refinished myself, and the smell of cinnamon because I burn the same candle every night. My sister Lacey, on the other hand, lives in Seattle with her husband Damien and their 2 kids. She's the kind of person who's always been liked, always been confident, and always had this way of walking into a room and making it about her. Our childhood relationship was strained, to put it mildly. She was popular and pretty, while I was the older, chubbier sister who read too much and got in the way of her social life. That's how I remember it. Lacey would probably say we just grew apart. We talk occasionally, mostly out of family obligation. Birthdays. Holidays. Once every few months she'll call, complain about motherhood or Damien, and hang up after telling me I really should get out more. Last week she called and said, casually, "Hey, Ro, remember Marla Price? Remember her?" I could have gone my whole life without hearing that name again. Marla was in Lacey's class. She was the classic small-town mean girl, gorgeous, cruel, and funny in that nasty way that made her friends laugh but left you crying in the school bathroom. I was a couple of years older, but Lacey and I overlapped enough in high school that I saw Marla more than I ever wanted to. She made my life heck. She'd make oinking noises when I passed by. Once, she snuck into my locker and replaced my gym clothes with a men's XXXL shirt as a joke. At my senior prom, I wore a handmade lavender dress. Marla found me near the punch table and managed to spill her drink down my front. It wasn't an accident. So no, I didn't forget Marla Price. She's in Eugene for this healing retreat thing, Lacey continued, like we were talking about an old friend. She needs closure. She's doing some kind of trauma therapy, I guess. And she asked if she could stay with you. What? Just for a night or 2. She said hotels were too expensive. It would really mean a lot to her. To her? To me, Lacey corrected. But the thing is, Lacey had already given her my address. Marla was already on her way. When Marla arrived, I felt like I was staring at a ghost from a nightmare I'd buried decades ago. She looked almost exactly the same, long, sleek blonde hair, high cheekbones, that perfect casual smile that never quite reached her eyes. "Rowan," she said brightly, like we were old friends. "Oh my God, it's so good to see you." She hugged me like nothing ever happened. I stood stiffly and let her. I wanted to say no. I wanted to slam the door. But I didn't. Years of people-pleasing are hard to unlearn. I let her in. I showed her to the guest room. I told myself it was just for one night. One night turned into 2. She treated my house like a hotel. She left wet towels on the bathroom floor. She helped herself to food in my fridge. She sprayed her overpowering vanilla perfume in the guest room like it was an air freshener. And she did this thing where she'd look me up and down, not quite smiling, not quite frowning, just judging. When I texted Lacey about it, she sent a laughing emoji and wrote, "Relax, she's harmless now." Right. I tried to keep my distance. I worked late. Ate dinner in my room. But then Lacey decided to visit for the weekend with Damien and their kids. "We'll do a little reunion dinner," she said. "It'll be fun." I wasn't thrilled about playing host, especially with Marla still in my home, but again, I kept quiet. I cleaned. I bought extra groceries. I tried to be civil. The night started off okay. Thai takeout. Kids glued to their tablets. Damien opened a bottle of wine. Marla had 2 glasses fast. Lacey and Marla started reminiscing, and eventually, the conversation drifted to high school stories. I mostly stayed quiet, eating my pad cew and waiting for it to be over. Then it happened. Do you remember that time at the lake? Lacey started, laughing. When Rose slipped on the dock. Oh my God, Marla said, putting her hand on her chest dramatically. The lake practically overflowed. She snorted. I swear, I thought the whole boat would capsize. Lacey chuckled. Damien actually laughed. It hit me like a slap. That old sting. The humiliation. The anger. The helplessness. But this time I wasn't helpless. Because I had a video. Just the Friday before, I'd gone to Tap and Pour on 13th Avenue to meet a friend, but she bailed. I stayed for a drink anyway, sitting at the bar with a book. Around 9:30, Damien walked in with a few guys. We made eye contact. He walked over. He said he was surprised to see me. Said Lacey had been distant lately. Said I looked different lately, in a good way. Then he leaned in. If I were with you, he said, voice thick with whiskey, I'd make sure you felt seen every day. I'd been stunned. I didn't know what to say. So I just opened my camera and hit record. Now, sitting at my dining table while Marla and Lacey laughed at my expense, I reached into my pocket, unlocked my phone, and played the video. The room went silent. Dead. Silent. Damien's face drained of color. Lacey froze with her fork halfway to her mouth. Marla blinked, her mouth still half open from her last joke. I stood, took my empty plate, and said, Marla, you'll need to find another place to stay tomorrow. Lacey, you can pick her up. Or not. And Damien, lose my number. Then I walked to the kitchen, my heart pounding but steady. I felt a strange calm I hadn't felt in years. Like I had finally taken my power back. They didn't follow me right away. There was whispering. Low voices. One of the kids asked why Aunt Rowan was mad. I didn't listen. Eventually, Lacey came into the kitchen alone, her eyes blazing. Lacey stood in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, mouth pressed into a line. That familiar expression, equal parts indignation and disbelief, made her look like a teenager again, back when she used to rat me out to our parents for things she did herself. You recorded my husband, she hissed, like I was the one who crossed the line. I set my plate in the sink and turned, slow and deliberate. I recorded a man hitting on me. It just so happened to be your husband. You're unbelievable. No, I said, he is. And you brought that woman into my home without so much as asking. You let her sleep in my bed, eat my food, mock me in my own house. She was drunk. She's still the same person she was 20 years ago. Lacey's jaw twitched. People make mistakes. You always hold on to things like they happened yesterday. God forbid someone says something wrong around you, and suddenly you're on a moral high horse. I looked at her for a long moment. It wasn't just something wrong. It's everything about how you treat me. How you've always treated me. She flinched, just a little. Then looked away. In the silence, I could hear Damien murmuring to Marla in the living room. There was an edge to his voice, embarrassment, probably, or panic. I didn't care. Let him squirm. You know what hurts most? I said, voice quiet now. Not what she said. Not even what he did. What hurts is watching you laugh when she humiliated me. Watching you let it happen. Lacey opened her mouth, then closed it. I walked past her, out of the kitchen, and into the hall. Marla was still sitting on the couch like she hadn't just detonated a landmine in my house. She had a glass of wine in her hand, her legs crossed, that same bored look on her face she'd worn during high school assemblies. She looked up at me like I was the problem. I don't think I'm staying tonight, she said flatly, standing. I stared at her. You think? Damien didn't meet my eyes. He shifted awkwardly, rubbing his jaw, his face flushed in that unmistakable way someone looks when they've been caught. Where are you going to go? Lacey asked from behind me. Marla shrugged. I'll figure it out. I've got friends. I'll get a hotel. I almost laughed. Now she could afford one? Lacey walked her to the door. Damien followed like a ghost. No one said goodbye. No one apologized. The door shut. My house, blessedly, was quiet again. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on the couch. I should have felt triumphant. Vindicated. But all I felt was hollow. Tired. It wasn't just about Marla. It wasn't just Damien. It was the weight of a lifetime of being the one who absorbed things. The quiet sister. The reliable one. The one who gets laughed at, brushed off, set aside. I had spent years pretending not to care when Lacey dismissed me, when she diminished me with her passive little comments and backhanded compliments. I had smiled through it, for family's sake, for peace's sake, because that's just Lacey. But that night at dinner, when Marla called me fatty and laughed, and my sister laughed too, that broke something in me. Not in a tragic way. In a clean, snapping, final kind of way. I couldn't do it anymore. The next morning, I got a text from Lacey. Thanks for humiliating me and Damien in front of the kids. I hope it was worth it. No apology. Not even a sliver of self-awareness. I didn't respond. She texted again later. Marla said you threatened to kick her out. That was really extreme. She was there for healing. I almost laughed. Healing? I typed out a response. Deleted it. Typed another. Deleted that too. Eventually, I just wrote, I gave her a roof. She gave me old wounds. We're even. She didn't reply. A few days passed. The quiet was nice. My house smelled like me again, no more overpowering perfume, no wine glasses left out on the counter, no soft giggling behind my back from women who had never grown up. But something in me had shifted. I started going on longer walks with Moxie, my rescue mutt. She was fiercely protective of me and seemed to sense that I needed her now more than ever. We wandered into corners of Eugene I hadn't visited in years. We watched the sun set over Skinner Butte, sat under the old oaks in Hendricks Park, let the spring air roll over us. I thought a lot. About boundaries. About family. About the stories we're told as kids, that blood is thicker than water, that family means forgiveness, that history should be forgiven no matter the cost. But what if the cost is your own self-worth? What if forgiveness becomes a cage? Then came the call. One I hadn't expected. It was Damien. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. Rowan. Look. I'm sorry. About everything. I had too much to drink. I messed up. That wasn't who I am. I'm trying to make things right with Lacey. I don't blame you for what you did. Honestly, I respect it. You stood up for yourself. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. It was a lot to take in. The next day, a letter came in the mail. Handwritten. From Marla. I didn't open it at first. I let it sit on the table for 3 days before I tore it open. The first line read, I didn't come to your house to heal. I came because I thought I could finally be bigger than the past. But I wasn't. The letter was surprisingly honest. Or at least it sounded honest. She admitted to still being stuck in old patterns. She said she didn't realize how much damage she'd done in high school, how she never really thought about how her jokes had stuck with people. She said she was sorry. But she didn't ask for forgiveness. That, I appreciated. Lacey didn't call for 2 weeks. When she finally did, it was short. Strained. How are you? She asked, like nothing had happened. I'm fine, I said. She paused. The kids miss you. That used to melt me. It didn't now. I miss them too, I said honestly. But I can't pretend this didn't happen. Neither can I, she said. But that was all she had. No apology. Just silence. A week passed, and then another. Lacey didn't reach out again. And I didn't reach out either. It was strange at first. The silence. We'd never been particularly close, but even surface-level conversations had always floated in and out of our lives like background noise, texts about mom's health, updates about the kids' school plays, random memes she thought were funny. Now there was nothing. And in that space, I felt freer. I started noticing little changes in myself. The way I carried my shoulders differently. Straighter. The way I responded to people at work, more assertive, less apologetic. It wasn't just the dinner incident. It was like that moment cracked open a wall that had been holding me in place for decades. The next time I saw my reflection in the mirror, I didn't think about my weight. Or my laugh lines. Or what Lacey might say if she saw me in that outfit. I just looked. And accepted. I hadn't realized how much of my self-image had been shaped by the people around me, how they looked at me, what they said, or didn't say, the way they made space for me or didn't. That Friday, I went back to Tap and Pour. Same bar. Same seat. Different book. I wasn't expecting anything. I just wanted to reclaim it. To take back the space where Damien had turned a normal night into something invasive and gross. I wanted to sit there and feel like myself again. Jess, my friend who'd bailed the last time, showed up this time. She gave me a sheepish hug and apologized for flaking. "You look different," she said. Stronger? We didn't talk about Damien or Lacey. We talked about books, travel, the tiny, beautiful things that make life interesting. I laughed. Real, deep laughter. And I didn't once think about how I looked doing it. On the way home, I walked past the lake where I'd fallen years ago, the one Lacey and Marla joked about. I remembered the exact moment. How the dock was slippery. How I'd tried to laugh it off even though the cold water stung and my dress clung to my body like shrink wrap. How Lacey had stood there, giggling into her towel with Marla while I tried to cover myself with my arms and hide the shame. I stood there now, watching the still water ripple under the street lamp glow. And I thought, if I had fallen today, I would have laughed too. Not because I was the joke, but because I'm not afraid of being seen anymore. A few days later, my mother called. She doesn't get involved in much, always preferred to let us work it out. But even she had heard the story. Lacey had told her. She said you embarrassed Damien. In front of the kids. I sighed. Did she mention why? She did, Mom said quietly. She told me about the video. About that girl, Marla. I remember her. Never liked her. She let her stay here without asking me. Then sat there and laughed while she made jokes about me. I'm sorry that happened, she said. Then, softer, you didn't deserve that. I froze. My mother, who always stayed neutral. Who always said things like, I'm sure she didn't mean it that way, or, don't make it a big deal. This time, she said what I needed to hear. You've always taken care of everyone, she continued. Maybe it's time you take care of yourself. I felt something warm bloom in my chest. Not vindication. Just release. Later that week, I got a text from Damien. I told Lacey the truth. I told her what I said to you. We're working on things. But I needed you to know. I didn't want you to carry the burden of our mess. It wasn't fair. I didn't know what to make of it. I still don't. Part of me appreciated the honesty. The accountability. But another part of me didn't care. I wasn't angry anymore. I was past it. Past him. Past needing validation from people who never truly saw me. Lacey still hadn't texted again. It wasn't a dramatic estrangement. There was no final blowout. No official cutoff. Just space. And silence. And sometimes, that's more final than any argument. I started spending more weekends hiking. I took Moxie to the coast. She loved the sand, hated the waves. I booked a solo cabin for a weekend in the Cascades with no Wi-Fi and no plans. I journaled. I cooked for myself. I bought a dress I loved without asking anyone's opinion. I started living without that constant pressure to make myself smaller for other people's comfort. One afternoon, I ran into someone I hadn't seen in years, Sarah, a woman who used to work with Lacey and knew our family casually. "I heard about the dinner," she said, not unkindly. "Oh?" She nodded. "People talk. I just want to say, I wish I had done something like that when my sister let her boyfriend move into my apartment without asking." We talked for half an hour in the grocery aisle. Turns out, we weren't so different. Women like us, quiet, overlooked, the ones who learn to stay small and sweet so others can shine, sometimes we don't realize how much we've been shrinking until we stop. It's strange, isn't it? The way one moment, one dinner, one sharp, cruel laugh can tilt your whole world. But not in the way you expect. It didn't break me. It uncovered me. Stripped away the politeness, the pretending, the weight I had been carrying that never even belonged to me. I don't know what will happen with Lacey. Maybe she'll call again. Maybe she won't. Maybe I'll see her at a birthday party or a holiday dinner and we'll smile, say hello, and pretend we're sisters in the way Hallmark movies think sisters should be. But I'll never be that version of myself again. The one who stays quiet while someone else's cruelty echoes through a room. A few more weeks passed. Spring settled into the Pacific Northwest, with all its fickle glory, one day sun, the next a soft drizzle that made everything smell like damp cedar. I started tending to the garden beds in my backyard again. There was something soothing about putting my hands in the dirt, pulling weeds, planting things that would take time to grow. One morning, while pruning the lavender bushes, my phone rang. "Lacey." I stared at it for a moment. I hadn't heard her voice since that night. Part of me considered letting it go to voicemail. But curiosity, or maybe hope, got the better of me. I answered. "Hello?" There was a pause. Then her voice, soft but stiff. "Hey. Can you talk?" I leaned against the patio railing, wrapping my arm around Moxie who was sunbathing near my feet. "I've got a few minutes." Another pause. Then, I wanted to say I'm sorry. That caught me off guard. I waited. "I've been thinking about what happened," she went on. "And about what you said." "You're right. About me. About the way I've treated you. I never meant to hurt you like that, but that doesn't mean I didn't." I stayed quiet. I laughed because it was easier, she continued. Easier to pretend nothing had changed. That we were still those girls from high school, just messing around. But you've changed. And I haven't really tried to get to know who you are now. I finally spoke. You brought someone into my house who bullied me for years. You laughed when she humiliated me. You didn't stand up for me, not once. I know, she said, barely a whisper. And I'll regret that for a long time. Her voice wobbled. Damien and I are separated. That surprised me, but I wasn't shocked. Because of what happened? Partly. But mostly because it forced me to look at things I've ignored for a long time. We've been off for a while. The video was, well, it broke the illusion. I nodded slowly, mostly to myself. So what now? I don't know, she admitted. But I want to do better. I want to make it right with you. And here's where the satisfying part starts, not with forgiveness handed out like candy, but with control taken back. I didn't let her off the hook. I told her that if she wanted to make amends, she could start by acknowledging the truth of who she's been, not just in that one moment, but for most of our lives. I told her I wasn't interested in going back to the way things were. I wasn't going to pretend we were close. I wasn't going to play the quiet sister anymore. I'm not angry, I said. But I'm not inviting you back in like nothing happened. I understand, she said. And I believed her. But I didn't hang up feeling soft or emotional or warm. I felt resolved. And that was enough. Fast forward 3 months. Lacey sent a card for my birthday. Not a text. Not a meme. A handwritten card. Inside it, she wrote, "Thank you for holding up a mirror. I didn't like what I saw, but I needed it. I hope this year is full of peace. You deserve it." She didn't ask to come visit. She didn't expect a response. And I didn't send one. But I did frame the card. Not because I forgave her. Not because I missed her. But because it marked something important, the moment my sister realized I wasn't going to be her punchline anymore. But the real moment of revenge? The truly satisfying one? It came a few weeks later, at our cousin Janie's retirement party in Portland. Big family affair. Everyone was there, cousins, aunts, people we hadn't seen in years. I almost didn't go. But Janie had been good to me growing up, and I didn't want to miss her big day. I wore a soft navy jumpsuit I'd bought at a boutique downtown, one that cinched just right at the waist and made me feel tall, confident. I curled my hair. Wore the red lipstick Lacey once told me was a little much. When I walked in, I felt eyes turn toward me. Not in the "oh no, what is she wearing" way. In the "who is that" way. Even Damien looked surprised. He was sitting awkwardly at the edge of the crowd, sipping from a plastic cup like he wished he were anywhere else. Lacey walked over to me slowly. She looked humbled. Polite. Not performative. "Hey," she said. "You look really good." "Thanks," I replied. I didn't say it back. I didn't need to. Later in the evening, when someone tried to make a joke, some old cousin muttering about how I was always the shy one, Lacey actually stepped in. "She's not shy," she said calmly. "She just doesn't waste words on people who don't deserve them." It was small. But it was something. And the best part? Marla was there too. Not with Lacey. Apparently, they hadn't spoken since that night. She kept to herself mostly, hovering near the snack table, trying to chat with people who barely remembered her. When we locked eyes across the room, she gave me a little wave. Hesitant. Unsure. I didn't wave back. I just smiled, turned, and walked away, with my head high, my heels clicking confidently, and a quiet joy blooming in my chest. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't public shame or angry confrontations. It's being unbothered. It's knowing that they remember who you used to be, but you become someone who doesn't need their approval. Someone who doesn't shrink. Someone who gets the last word without ever having to say it out loud. And that's how I finally got my closure. Not because they changed. But because I did.